Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2025 release Heart Eyes. Yes, I finally got to watching Heart Eyes. This is one I wanted to see when it came out because I actually heard a lot of great things about it, but I also heard some people saying they really didn't like it, and I can understand why that is, which obviously I'll talk about in a no spoiler way as I go on with this review. Hard Eyes is directed by Josh Ruben, who did Scare Me and Werewolves Within. I liked both of those films, so I was very excited to see that this was a Josh Ruben film because I do like supporting this guy. Also, it's important to note there is a scene in this film at a drive-in theater, which first of all, awesome. I love drive-ins. Second of all, Josh Ruben actually shows up as a very minor character, like kind of like a whatever character that just has like one scene. But if you watch, you can see director Josh Ruben in that scene. So I had known what he looked like, so I was just like, oh, there he is. It's the guy. This film was written by a few people. Phillip Murphy was the first. He wrote Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Michael Kennedy, who wrote Freaky, It's a Wonderful Knife, and Time Cut, which I saw Freaky and It's a Wonderful Knife and enjoyed both of those, so I was excited going into this knowing that. And then Christopher Landon, who wrote Disturbia, 6 of the Paranormal Activity films, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and Happy Death Day to You, Freaky, and We Have a Ghost. So of all those films, I have seen Freaky, liked it, and We Have a Ghost also liked it, which I think is still on Netflix if you want to check that out. One of the important things for me with this film, Devon Sawa is in it. I really enjoy the performances of Devon Sawa, and he doesn't have a huge role in this film. I actually wish his role was a little bit bigger, but it's very enjoyable because, I don't know, I'm just a Devon Sawa fan. This film is currently available for streaming on Netflix when I'm putting up this review, so if you already have Netflix, it's free for you to watch. And I'm glad that I waited that long because I did consider renting it through Fandango at home, and then I heard it was going to be coming to Netflix, and I'm like, oh, I'll just wait a few more weeks and then I'll not pay for it. All right, so quick synopsis of this one. So this is about a town that is having a serial killer problem. There is a killer on the loose known as the Heart Eyes Killer who appears to be going after happy couples or couples that appear to be happy. And they have an opening scene that's very effective in kind of setting the tone for the film. There's good comedy to it, actually legitimately funny comedy to it, and really good gore to it as well, so you know exactly what this film's going to be about. And it just kind of sets up a murder of some people. So it tells you kind of everything you need to know. It's not a deep story. It feels very similar to a lot of slasher films you've seen. I think it probably feels most similar to Scream, to being like a Scream film, and I could honestly see this becoming some sort of Scream-like franchise and actually kind of taking the torch from Scream at some point potentially. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because who knows, maybe there won't be another Hard Eyes, but I feel like it did well enough that there will be. So yeah, and then it's about a woman, after that opening scene, it then kind of focuses on this one particular woman who's having some issues with her place of business. She kind of bumps into this guy, and she's kind of interested in the guy, but he's also kind of like going to steal her job from her. So it's this kind of like will they, won't they type thing, because there's that tension between them, and you could see they'd be a good match, but then at the same time, they both don't want to admit that they could be a good match, and then you have thrown into the mix the Hard Eyes Killer on the loose, so no one really wants to be a couple. So yeah, and that's where I'll stop with the synopsis portion. So yeah, great start to it. Like I said, love the opening scene. The killer's mask in this, I think, is kind of too cheesy. I like the heart, like it literally has like heart eyes, which you see it very early on, but like I like the heart eyes aspect of it. And I like the rest of the mask. It's the smile. The smile is a problem to me because it is like this big smile. It makes it look goofy. It makes it look cheesy. And I think what would have been better if they went with something like no mouth, or something that's just kind of more straight, or kind of like a slight frown, or like stitched closed. Something like that I think would have been a lot more effective for the creepiness factor, for the scary factor. It looks too goofy, in my opinion. But, you know, there are plenty of people who are going to say it's perfect as it is, and that's fine. There are some fun characters and nice comedy to go along with them. Like I said in that opening scene, there's some legitimately funny stuff, and that continues through the film. They did a very good job with having decent comedy. So again, I'm going to go back to two of these writers were involved in writing the film Freaky, which I thought had good comedy to it. So if you liked the comedy in Freaky, you're probably going to like the comedy aspects in Hard Eyes. So thumbs up on those. Really enjoy that. Plenty of the characters literally say the words "I'll kill you" in different circumstances, and then they kind of backpedal on it. And I think that's kind of a humorous way to make the audience question who is the killer. It's kind of like a way of quickly throwing out these types of red herrings without having to go too hard at it or having to go too far into a character to make people feel like, oh, maybe it's this person. Just like having all these characters kind of throwing out, "I'll kill you, haha, just kidding." It's a good way to kind of make people second guess who they think might be the killer, but then also make fun of the genre itself in a way, which this film does feel like it is kind of poking fun at the slasher genre, but also doing it like it's a Scream film kind of, and doing it pretty well. So it's this nice line that it's walking of being like, oh, we're kind of serious about this, but we're also kind of poking fun at this genre at the same time. So I like that about it. I think it's fun. They do a nice job with their use of music. Really like the use of music, and it's, recognizable music. I'm not talking about like the score that was composed for this film. I'm talking about recognizable songs that they end up throwing into it. Really enjoy the use of those. The dialogue is well written, and the character relationships are quite interesting. I thought they did such a nice job with the characters that have a decent amount of screen time, really fleshing them out, really making you feel like you get to know them, like you care about them. They legitimately have character development that goes on. The dialogue is really well written, so whenever characters are interacting, it feels legitimate for what's going on here, and it's interesting, and it's fun, and it's funny, and it's, relatable at times as well. So I think they did a really good job there. Plus, the two main characters, I think, do have a really good dynamic together. There's some really good chemistry on screen between these two individuals, very good performances. And that's the thing, like everyone did a good job cast-wise, but the two leads in particular did a really good job, especially, interacting with each other and making you feel like the whole will they, won't they was very real. So the slasher portion does end up feeling kind of secondary at times in this film, actually for pretty large stints of this film, which I think is what a lot of people didn't like about it. So it literally ends up being one of these films where it's like, it feels like a slasher for large portions of it because you get that good gore. It feels like a horror comedy for portions of it because there's the horror aspect and there's good comedy to it. But then there are portions where it kind of feels like a Hallmark romance movie. And from what I've heard, the writers and director wanted that to kind of be the case. When they went for this kind of like will they, won't they romance aspect of the film, they wanted it to feel very much in that genre's realm. And I think they did a good job with that. They achieved that if that's what they were trying to do. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like about this film is that it's like slasher in the beginning, and then you're focusing so much on this potential love story that people are just like, well, where's the slasher, But it does come back in, and then, I just think that some people who are big into horror and big into slashers are kind of like, I don't want the romance mixed in. I just don't want it. But I'm fine with it, and I think they did a good job with how they chose to integrate it here. Parts of it feel very Scream-inspired. I already talked about that. The two main characters feel equal in how much they do against the killer and how much they need help from one another, which I think is a really cool concept because typically with these films, you'll have individual characters where they're either going to be strong against the killer or they're not going to be strong against the killer. So either they don't need help and they're the one helping everyone, or they need all the help and they're most likely going to end up dying. The two main characters, they were very even. They felt so even. It's like certain instances where they were doing great and they could help other people and they didn't need help from anyone. But then they'd end up in instances where, oh my gosh, they might die right now. They do need help from each other and other people. And it made it feel more real. Because a lot of the times in these slasher films, it doesn't feel real that someone's like this super soldier, basically, who can just, have no problem taking on the killer, and then there are other people who are 100% defenseless. They have no brains, they have no survival skills, whatever whatsoever. So it's a really good mix, and the fact that those characters end up being very equal. So I love that about the film. The killer reveal was decent in this film. Not it's one that I could see some people kind of rolling their eyes at, but I think it's done kind of tongue in cheek, like, it's kind of a horror comedy slasher. They tried to be a bit original, which is nice. It's kind of this thing where it's like the reveal of who the killer is like kind of original, but kind of just staying with something you would already expect from a slasher at the same time. You'll know what I mean if you've actually seen the film. So it's kind of like a mixture of original but not original at the same time. And I just think, again, they did a really good job of kind of walking that line. So yeah, I did enjoy this film. I thought it was quite good. It was one of the better films of 2025 in my opinion. So I'm going to give it a pretty good 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. I would watch it again. I like this film. And like I said, I could see this becoming kind of a Scream-esque franchise. And I think people who are into Scream for the most part would probably like it. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. Would love to hear your thoughts. Go ahead and put it down in the comments. We can talk spoilers if you want to. No problem with that. Also, do me a quick favor, hit thumbs up on the video to help me out with that YouTube algorithm. Hit subscribe to my channel to help me out with just growing my community here. And if you want to help me out a little bit monetarily, for a few dollars a month, you can get some perks with the channel. There are 3 different tiers. You can check that out. Link in the description. You do get some pretty good things, including early access to all my videos, or the top tier, getting videos that no one else will see. So yeah, that's fun stuff. You can also hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. And that's it. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. I do appreciate it. And until next time, keep it brutal.